So this is a video to show how I got the bow controls, the free aim bow control, to be back like it was in previous Souls games in Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin. This is a Steam version, and you couldn't really do this in a console version, so because I have to use Steam input to do it. So I finally got a bow in Dark Souls 2. I mean, you get it within pretty close to the start of the game. You find a short bow. And in Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1, when you had a bow and you had it set to holding it two-handed, you do that with the triangle button on a PlayStation style controller, for instance. So it's two-handed and it's ready to do free aim, and in the previous games you would do that by hitting L1 or left bumper. So here we are and it zooms in, but in Dark Souls 2 by default you have to hold L1 to keep it zoomed in, so you're constantly holding the button to keep the sight zoomed in, and that's kind of a pain. It bothers my dumb old shoulders that I've abused with various work-related stress stupidity over the years. So I don't like holding buttons down, but I love shooting a bow in these games, or at least I did in Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1. So I was kind of bummed out until it occurred to me that in Steam input you can set a button to be a toggle, and when you do that, that means pushing the button will act like you're holding the button down when you push it once, and then you push it again and it will act like you've released the button. So you can do that. That's really easy to do, and for instance I'll show you. So the game is running. You go to your Steam interface, which I do not have open because I'm unprepared, obviously. Go to your controller settings, click on edit layout, and I think I'm not, might as well go ahead and capture my cursor here. Okay. Edit layout, and you would go to your L1 button. It would only have one command here to start with, and you would click on the gear thing and you'd hit settings, and this would be like this. So you'd click toggle, you would toggle to on, and then when you did that you could go back to the game and you could hit your L1 button, and you would only have to tap it once and it would stay zoomed in. So that seems good, right? Then you tap it again to zoom back out. The problem you would run into eventually, though, is that there are other ways to switch out of the zoom in state. And this happened in previous games as well. It's basically, if you hit another control that changes your equipped weapon, it'll toggle out of the zoom. So if I hit the triangle button, which toggles between one and two-handed, it switches out of the zoom. If I hit R1 on the D-pad, because I have bow and sword equipped in my right hand, the right on the D-pad will toggle between those, and that will zoom me out. And I have a shield in my left hand, so if I'm two-handed on the bow and then hit my left on the D-pad, it'll switch to the shield, or put a shield away, which will pop me out of the zoom. And if you were just using zoom toggle at this point, you would have a problem where, actually I need to set this so you can see what happens. We're gonna just set this to this for now, so effectively disabling it. So let's say you just have your zoom toggle, and now I hit, say, triangle. Now if I switch to sword, oh no, I don't have this. I would need to do more setup. Well, I'm not going to do it, but basically you would be stuck in like your block stance, because the L1. That's what you get when you L1 with the sword. And that L1 toggle would still be on because you hadn't toggled out of it. You had gotten out of the zoom, because you get into the zoom by hitting L1, but Steam still thinks the toggle is on until you hit L1 again. But if you get out of the zoom with another key like triangle, then it'll still treat L1 as on, so it'll be sticking you like in shield stance, and you'll just be stuck like this. Now you could get out of that by hitting L1 again, but or not. But anyway, it's kind of a pain, and it can trip you up, and you can die if there are enemies around while you're struggling with confusion over why you're stuck in your shield stance or something. Now, what I'm showing you won't really work too well, probably, if you're doing like a weapon, like a dual wield arrangement, or if you are what's the other thing, using a shield a lot. Like, I basically don't use a shield. I just keep a shield equipped on my back for a passive buff the shield may have, kind of, or if I should in an emergency need some shield for some specific enemy, which it seems pretty rare. Hopefully it'll be rare, because I hate using shields, because again, to use a shield you usually have to hold a button, and also I just don't like it. So I basically just use I use melee weapons two-handed, and I use a bow, and that's it. This wouldn't really work for another arrangement, so if you have another arrangement, maybe this will be some help to you, but you would have to adjust things a bit here. But anyway, I'm using this simple goofballs arrangement of just two-handed melee weapons and a bow. So, to avoid getting tripped up where cutting out of a zoom with some other input would leave me in some kind of stance that I don't want to be in with a shield or a sword the next time I switch to those, you can use what Steam calls what does it call them? Action set layers. So again, you would come into your Steam library for the game. You would go over to the controller settings. You would go to edit layout, and you might have to activate Steam. There might be a thing here where you have to activate Steam input or something. I don't think I had to do that though, so maybe not. I'm using a dual sense controller, by the way, in Windows. So a Steam action set layer. Now, I'd never used action sets before, and it took me hours to work out this stuff because it's not particularly intuitive, and Steam does not offer any documentation on it, which sucks. And I couldn't find any like really firm player documentation on it. So it came down to a lot of trial and error, basically. But so what I did was I came to the default action set. I said add layer, and it gave me a new layer, and I named it aiming bow, just so I know what it is. That doesn't mean anything to Steam. That's just the name for my identification. I just typed that in. Then I said add always on command. Now that is not a particularly intuitive thing there, and I noticed they capitalized this, they lowercase c there, and they capitalized c there, which is poor. But anyway, so who knows what they thought that would mean. It seems to mean that when you're in this action set, it'll be using this command instead of your normal command for whatever input you're mapping it here. Now, you have to have something that'll tell Steam to switch to that action set and switch to using that control. And the only difference, so I added left bumper in here because that's what I'm concerned with, that left bumper, or the R1 button, or L1 button, excuse me, as people used to PlayStation buttons like me would say. And the only thing I changed, so I did add always on command, and then it would come down with a blank thing, and I would click on this and go and click on left bumper. I can delete that now because I don't need a duplicate. And the only thing I changed was I clicked the gear icon, I went to settings, and I toggled toggle on again. So I have toggle on here as well. So this looks like what I have on my normal button setup, but it's now in an action set. And that seems to be key. Well, it is key, but I also didn't quite think it would work this way. It took me a while to figure this out. So it's in an action set, and the reason why I put it in an action set is because there's another command you can set that says, and to give Steam some credit, I guess, when you go to action sets, if you click this question mark, it'll give you a few hints about action sets and how to use them. And this was a key one. It said first, wait, what did it do? Well, it gives you one example. It says, for example, some games automatically lower your sensitivity when you zoom in to aim a weapon. For games that don't do it, you could use a layer to reproduce that behavior. First, create a layer named while aiming and set it to lower sensitivity. Then add these commands to the left trigger. And so it's got one command that is adding an action set layer when you press down on R2, and another command that is removing that same action set layer when you release R2. Now, I actually don't want to be holding the button, so this is sort of like what I want to do, but also sort of the opposite. So, but this part about adding and removing the command mapping seemed like it was something that I could use. So that's kind of what clued me into this whole thing, this one tiny little example they have. So fortunately, they did have that much instruction. And it says, with this setup, whenever you pulled left trigger to aim, your sensitivity would automatically be lowered by the while aiming layer, which is this, and then it would be removed when you release the button. That's kind of key. So, all right, so that's why I tried setting up this action set. So here we've got the action set with the left bumper button changed to toggle. Now I already had it on the regular buttons outside of the action set, so that's the default action set. Now what's going to tell it to use that action set? That's the default. Yeah, that's the default action set. It's a layer in there. So we're always using the default action set unless we're switching to another one. I don't have another one, so we're always on this one. What's going to tell it to use this layer, though? Because this is not always active, because it's on a layer. So what tells it to use, what tells it to use this layer is, what does tell it to use that layer? Oh, now I'm confused. Maybe I'm not even using that layer. Wait. Yeah, maybe I'm just an idiot. Well, yeah, there's something weird here, because this does work unless I screw. Oh no, I did. Yeah, okay, right. I was messing with it while I was trying to show you what happens if you don't have that. So never mind. So yeah, so this is what tells it to use that action layer. You have your command by default. You have a command that's just left bumper. So let me get rid of this for now. This extra one I added. Okay, so you come in by default, you just have left bumper. And I had tried setting this to toggle as I described, but then there are cases where you get out of your zoom with a different button and it will still have that toggle locked in if you switch to your shield or your sword, so you'll be like auto blocking and you'll be stuck in that stance until you hit L1 again, which can be awkward. So if you want to avoid that, you can try this action set thing. So that was my idea. So I added an extra command, and you get to this screen that shows you buttons, but we don't want a button, we want action set commands. So you click action set at the top, you hit add action set layer, you leave that okay. Since we only have one actual action set layer, it's automatically populated here, and I hit confirm. So now we have a second command. In addition to acting like the left bumper button, every time you hit L1, it will also add the action set layer. So that's what turns the action set layer on. And then when that's on, it does left bumper with the toggle. Now, that's the same thing that's already on the normal buttons. So what's the difference, you ask? Well, I guess there isn't a difference there. What the difference comes when you want to have the other buttons that could get you out of the zoom, you want to have those, we want to have those cutting the toggle off. It's not going to entirely cut it. Well, it's because the toggle will come back on when you hit L1 again, because you have toggle set in your normal L1 button. But it'll turn the active toggle off when you remove the action set layer. And so that will free you from being stuck with the toggle on when you switch to your sword or your shield without having zoomed out with L1. So yeah, so like here I just came in this, and I'll redo it so you can see. I came into triangle because triangle switches you between one and two-handed stances or grips or whatever you want to call it, and that will zoom you out without hitting L1, which would leave us stuck with the toggle on. So I said add extra command, remove action set layer. I left this on aiming bow. I left the toggles, the switches there like they are. So now when I hit the triangle button, it will act like a normal triangle button, but it will also turn off that action set layer, which will turn off the toggle and free us from being stuck in some weird stance we don't want to be in when we switch to our shield or sword. And then I just did the same thing for left and right on the D-pad, which switch what you're holding in your left or right hands, and thus also zoom you out of the bow free aim zoom. So same thing, I just added a remove action set layer to left on the D-pad, and did add extra command and added another one to right on the D-pad, and that's it. So I think that's it. I don't think I said anything else. So yeah. So now when I zoom in, if I hit triangle and it switches me from two-handed to, single-handed grip on the bow, it is not stuck with the L1 toggle on, which would be, with my shield out here, would be holding the shield up like this. I'm simulating that by actually holding the button now, although I don't need to because there's a toggle, so I've just toggled that back on by hitting L1 again. But anyway, you get the idea, right? So I'm not going to be stuck if I triangle out of the bow zoom. I'm not going to be stuck if I weapon switch with my right hand by hitting right on the D-pad. I'm not going to be stuck in the shield stance there or whatever, or in two-handed grip with the sword. And likewise, if I hit left, I'm not going to be stuck in my shield put away barehanded, I guess blocking with the, or punching with the, I don't know, something weird would happen, I don't know. So anyway, that's all. And it seems pretty simple. It was very confusing to set up, but I guess that's about as good as I can get it, and it pretty much works, I think. I'm going to try playing with it for realsies, and I guess I'll find out. But that's pretty much it. So yeah, I think I've got a clean bow zoom working here in Dark Souls 2 via a Dark Souls and Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls toggle, so I don't have to keep holding the darn button down while I'm zoomed in. I just didn't want to go through the game having to keep the darn button down, because I spent a lot of time zoomed in picking out targets in these games. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and we're going to go ahead and try actually playing with this in my next video, and I'll see if it actually works or if it just screws me up. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye-bye.